And good afternoon, wherever you are, all around the country and sometimes even the world. We hear from you. Welcome to the Dr. Cloud Show. And it is another day. And this is the time we get to talk in this hour. That means you get to call me. If I had your number, I would call you and I would tell you all of my woes and you could help me, but I don't have your number. So you got to call me. And here is that number. It's 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774, and that's the number to call in and get on the show. So I wanted to start with a shout out to our audience. I did get to spend a little more time checking in last night on some of the Facebook comments, and I just got to tell you guys, you know, you're helping each other. You're doing what relationship does. People with experience sharing that experience with other people. People with no experience sharing the support with other people and telling them, at least you're not alone in this. I might not have the answer, but I'm pulling for you. I'm understanding it. I've been there myself, praying for you. Just good old fashioned support. And that's so important, especially at this time when we don't get to see a lot of our support network as much as we normally do. So I just wanted to applaud our audience there. And I'm sure it's true on the other platforms as well. Didn't get to see those, but we are on several platforms as we're building an audience here, which reminds me to remind you, remember, I always have to tell you this, we're going to keep doing this as long as, you know, anybody is listening. So to do that, we got to get the word out. So share the link, invite your friends. If there's a call that relates to a friend of yours or a family member, that might be a good thing to, just shoot them a link, say, hey, they were talking about you on the show today. So that might introduce them to it. Our number again, 844-940-2774. And I always begin the program with talking a little bit about a concept. And I've talked about this here and there. I think I've mentioned it before, but I wanted to focus on it specifically here for a moment. And that is, I'm going to bring together kind of two issues here, right? One of them is it's basically under the what we call it. Let's just call it the umbrella of something that science is now calling neuroplasticity, which means that however your brain is wired, then so what? I mean, rewire it. Now think about that. Just think about that for a second. How many of you have ever heard statements like, well, leopard can't change its spots, or, people never change, or that's just the way he is, or the popular ones in the last handful of years, which drives me crazy because it's so not true. I hear this all the time, in media and this, that. Well, my husband or my wife, they're borderline personality or narcissistic personality, and they don't change, they can't change. That is not true. That is not even close to being true. All of that added up equals this: people can change. People can grow. People can be transformed. People can go from despairing and hopeless to thriving. I've been doing this a long time. This is not theory. I have seen so many people go from here to there. I remember when I first went into this field. And I was learning these kind of like these little models of how people grow and change and how to treat this and treat that and this and the other. And I remember for a couple of years early on, I went to work at a psychiatric hospital right out of college, and even the last couple of years in college, and then just learning, just still wet between between the years, wet between the ears too, wet behind the ears. And I remember thinking, you know, this is not worth giving my life to. I don't think I'm going to go into this field And they had all these little models that were popular and being taught. Sometimes a lot of them, it's hanging out in the faith community. Some of them were in the faith community. Some of them were in the non-faith community. But it was stuff like, everything depends on your thinking and how to change your thinking. And you got to love yourself before you love anybody else. And, just kind of these models and these templates. And I would see people getting helped, and I would see them, depressed people. You treat the depression, and they would get better. Or eating disorders, learning how to cope with their eating disorder better, and this and the other. But it just wasn't. I wasn't seeing enough to make me want to give the next, many decades to this field. I got really discouraged, and then kept going further in my training and got some new experiences and got introduced to a whole different world of models and research and just the ways that people grow. And I always use the phrase, it's like I was born again. It was like, wow, this is why I went into this field. I went into this field not to see people learn how to cope with anxiety better, but to be people who used to be anxious who are no longer anxious, or not how to cope with an eating disorder. I remember a lot of times you would hear back then, well, bulimic, and I know I'll always have this. I got to surrender and all this kind. No, no, no. That doesn't have to be true all the time. It doesn't. I would see people with eating disorders develop normal relationships with food, for example. And so I'm saying all that to say this, that when we begin to get on a growth path that's actually aligned with the way that we are created and the way that we work, and as science is validated, and from the chair I sit in, our faith validates always the same things. And we learn these principles as we're going down that track of these principles. The change that can happen in your life is limitless. But one of the things that hangs on is something that we now call neuroplasticity. We used to call it growth, but what that means is that your wiring is not fixed. It's plastic. It can be melted and changed and reformed. But here's what we also know about it. That requires new circuitry to grow, new wiring to grow, laying down new code in the computer and the software. And you know what that requires? In most aspects of it, it requires a relationship. It requires, first of all, our being melted. Think about how if you've got a candle, for example, and it's a certain shape, you can reshape that candle. But what do you have to do? It's got to be heated and melted, and then the wax can be kind of reshaped. Well, that's kind of how we are. We've got to get to a vulnerable position where we're open to taking in, reshaping, taking in new voices from the outside, because we took in a bunch of critical voices from the outside before, and learning new behaviors, taking risks, learning, messing up, correcting, new wiring gets formed, and we can change. So, what is all that to say? That all that to say is I'm just really excited about your future and the possibilities. That once you get into the kinds of supportive relationships that you need, and you can get vulnerable in those relationships, and those relationships are working on the right issues with you, and kind of pushing you towards new behaviors, that new circuitry begins to get laid down, and we change and we grow. So I hope that's a hopeful word for you today as we hop into the calls. Um, Here's a number if you want to talk. It's 844-940-2774. And we're going to start off and go to Jason, who's calling us from Arkansas. We've got quite a few people from Arkansas that have been talking to us, Jason. I was giving a shout out to those hogs back there. How are you?
Hey, Dr. Cloud, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jason?
Good. Hey, I really appreciate talking to you. It's an honor.
Yeah, man.
Dr. Cloud, I don't, unlike some of your callers to the show so far, which has been great, by the way, I really appreciate it. I don't have a certain event or, a real current specific scenario in my life at the moment. But what I have always, I've sought out some resources and seen you and read some of your discussion about anxiety. And I would love to just hear you talk about how to deal with anxiety. Anxiety and fear have always been a theme in my life as long as I can remember. And, just in certain days, I feel like I'm in a good place.
How do you
using maybe
experience it?
some tools?
How do you experience it? Like when you say anxiety's always been there, like, is it generally speaking, some people have a fear or anxiety about a specific thing, and maybe social, they're fine until they have to be in a social situation. Other people may have a fear of, particular activity like public speaking or test anxiety or something. Like some people might have like generalized anxiety. They're just always kind of a little amped up. Some people have a lot of anxiety and they're obsessional about it and they worry about it. Some people have anxiety and they get kind of compulsive behaviors. How does yours show up? How does yours show up?
I'd say it's more general. Some of the things you mentioned earlier there, the public speaking, I would say I have some definite social anxiety as well. But also have anxiety related to things such as my job, my work. It feels very overwhelming at times. And while I know everyone, for instance, feels that way at times, I just, I have certain just intense, feels like, and a little bit irrational feeling about it. And I know some of that's maybe from some thought patterns and things from that I've had a long, long time.
What would be an example of the thought pattern that you're referring to?
Oh, I think just maybe always, instead of assuming a positive outcome, maybe always assuming or fearing a negative one.
Okay.
Would maybe be a description.
Hey, Jason, what does your garage and the trunk of your car look like?
Bare bones.
Bare bones?
Pretty clean, bare bones, no frills.
Are you pretty? Yeah. So you're pretty organized.
Yes.
And are you pretty structured in the way you do your day and your life and all that, like a list maker and color code your underwear?
Yes.
And I'm kidding, but that helps.
Yeah. Yep. It does help, and you're right. I going a little bit down that road, if some of that's not there, there's a little bit of anxiety.
Okay. Okay. And what is what does your social network look like? You have a real close knit set of friends?
A good set of friends. I wouldn't say close. I've always, my wife and I feel like I have a good relationship, and we've always been active in church and things like that. So a good network, but never.
Let me ask a different way. How many friends are inside of this circle of anxiety?
None.
Okay. And is fear of failure like a big part of this? Those worrisome thoughts in your job, I'm going to get it wrong and I'll make a mistake and I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Or the the embarrassment, I'm incompetent. Okay. I can't do it. It's overwhelming.
And you've never been depressed?
No, without having it literally diagnosed, I would say I have been.
Like clinically depressed, where you couldn't get out of bed and you had no energy and no appetite and stuff like that, or you just have kind of down days and then you kind of come back from it?
Yeah, there we go. Probably the down days. Yeah, not
Okay.
Like I said, probably
All right.
not clinically.
Let me and I'm gonna ask you one more question. And then originally you said you'd like to hear me kind of talk about it. I'm gonna give a broad framework about anxiety problems, but highlight a couple of them for you. But you said you do a few things that help you, a few tools. You said what tends to help you a little bit?
You know, I've seen some of your resources about it recently, but the thought of mindfulness has really come about. Seems like the last few years.
So mindfulness
some of that,
helps. What else? Is that
it kind of helps calm the nerves. The mindfulness.
Okay.
I've also heard others talk recently about, hey, what about you set aside a time, a specific time where you're going to allow yourself to worry or stress.
And
Jason,
then
you're just going to be done.
All right. Yeah, you can kind of bracket. That helps, that kind of thing. But I want to ask you one more question. When you're worried, thinking about work and this and the other, is there always like a person attached to this? Like somebody's going to be critical or not happy or disappointed, or do you think about it that way? Like who you're going to disappoint?
There's some of that, but like I said, I think there's a lot of social anxiety, for instance, as well. So I don't know that I'm necessarily thinking of someone there that would be disappointed. But in that instance, maybe there are people who I think, oh, they're judging me, they're being critical of me. So
but
maybe there is.
I was referring to what you said about your work. You said you experience this a lot in work. Okay, so let me just talk for sort of around this in the anxiety thing, and hopefully, are you a member of Boundaries Stop Me?
I am not. I get your emails. I listen to clips, but I am not a member.
There's a lot of stuff in there on anxiety, by the way, if you want to look at it. So let me talk a little bit about this. How we're wired has a lot to do with kind of how we manifest anxiety. Basically every human has some kind of anxiety because we're always in flux and change, and what happens is when something new, different, or alien, or threatening, or scary kind of pops up, then our system's going to get activated, right? It gets activated, and we start to feel this thing we call anxiety. And basically, when you're talking about the worry part of this, basically what happens is that when our systems get activated, your brain is generating a lot of thoughts. The amperage goes up, like cortisol, adrenaline, and a bunch of other stuff. And so when that system, which is you've heard fight or flight, for example. Well, what would you fight or flee from? Well, danger, right? So anytime that system is activated, and some people gets activated because they have trauma in their life, there's a lot of reasons. But whenever it's activated, your brain will create really, really, really negative thoughts, because whoever woke up in the middle of the night was afraid, oh no, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. We don't do that. See, this is a danger system that's being activated. When a fire alarm goes off, the building's not worried about somebody delivering gifts to the door. The building's worried about this going to burn down. So your brain generates all these thoughts, and they're all negative, because that's kind of what the system is about. So as you were talking about, what prayer and being mindful of our thoughts and kind of watch them and don't attaching to them, not attaching to them. One of the things about mindfulness I talk about a lot is, a lot of people get spooked by it, all this stuff, unless you're like chanting to, weird goddesses or something. All mindfulness is it's learning to pay attention. And see, when we start to pay attention to how we're feeling and we get above our thoughts, we're not grabbing our thoughts. Oh, there's that weird thought again. Oh, there's that. That was weird. Why am I afraid of that? Yeah. But you're not grabbing it and thinking about it. It's like, oftentimes you'll hear me say, you can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you don't have to grab it and help it build a nest. So these thoughts are just going to come. What mindfulness does is we get above them and we just notice, oh, I'm feeling that. Oh, there's that feeling in my chest. And we don't get freaked out by it and we don't grab the thoughts. And then we learn to surrender to things we can't control to God. And then we learn to whoops, I just knocked over my iPad here. We learn to dispute negative thoughts with positive ones. That's what all the cognitive people do. So basically what you're talking about here is, and I'm talking about the symptoms of worry that people have. There are tools for that. We talked a lot about it in boundaries.me, but observing, get above it, not grabbing them, just noticing them, not be freaked out by them. Oh, there's that twitch in my leg again. Oh, there's that tightness in my chest. No big deal. And then you ignore that and then you get involved in whatever you're doing in the present. And that takes you out of those patterns and you're building new ones by feeling it and ignoring it and then getting involved in whatever you're involved in at the moment. That builds new patterns instead of the worrisome ones. Relaxation exercises, where you're just Google relaxation exercises. I also got a thing on it on boundaries.me, where you walk through learning how to relax your body, breathing techniques, scripture memory, riding a bike. There's a lot of stuff we can do for the symptoms, but those are symptoms. Something's causing that system to be activated. And that's where we got to look at. Let me just give you a couple of things to think about. When I ask you about your social network and say you got a lot of friends, but then I ask, well, how many friends are on the inside circle of this anxiety? See, that's where a human being was not designed to be isolated, carrying all of this alone. Remember, I said earlier in the program, I said neuroplasticity does two things. It needs two things. We get rewired. We got to melt the wax and get vulnerable. So we get vulnerable, invite somebody into that circle, and then say, I'm really feeling scared about this and this and the other, and they understand and connect with it. What we know, I mean, this is science has proven this over and over and over. Comforting relationship, the anxiety goes down. Well, then that gets internalized. And then you're building a fabric of a feeling internally, I'm not alone in the world, and your anxiety goes down. So I talk so much about relationship on this program. And the second big area that we look to is how much control you feel like you have. If we're people pleasing and subject to not being able to say no and people manipulating us and all those kinds of things where you wake up every morning, what am I to do today? Well, I don't know. I don't know who's going to manipulate me or control me. That's an anxiety prone way to live. And you see a lot of people who feel out of control of their lives because other people have control of them. But the third one, and this is one that I wanted you to think about for a moment, is if we aren't okay with making mistakes and being imperfect, then we're going to be subject to being criticized or judged or rejected or not accepted or shamed or condemned for anything that's not perfect. And so we're all walking around with a bunch of crap that's not perfect, right? And that makes us anxious. What if somebody sees it? What if they, oh no, what if they say I'm not, what if I make a mistake? What if I say this wrong? And that creates more and more anxiety. Well, again, back to relationship, what we need is people in our lives and people close to us that see the imperfections, that see the failures, see the zits, smell the farts, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, where your failures are, what's going on that's doesn't look perfect, but somebody needs to. And once they know it, that critical voice in your head starts to get lowered because now you got new voices who are saying to you, It's okay. You're all right. Let's work on it. Don't worry about it. When we start to do those sorts of things, we get rewired. So I want you to look at your level of support and how many people are in it with you, the neediness that you have that's stopping the emotional isolation, the amount of control you have by being good boundaries, and also normalizing imperfection and having nice voices in your head when you fail. That'll go a long way to affecting a lot of this anxiety. Okay? Think about those things. I think that might help. Our number 844-940-2774 is the number to call to be on the show. 844-940-2774. We're going to go all the way out to Chicago. And you know what's cool about this, about live radio? We can go anywhere, right? Especially on the internet. I love. I've been seeing people from Australia and Europe and all these places. Really, really cool. Well, now we're going to go to Chicago and talk to Chris. Hey, Chris, I hope you have made it onto the line there. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, Dr. Cloud, pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Good to talk to you. How can I help you?
So I guess basically, situation I'm in is my father is 75 years old. I'm 43, and he's made his choice. We've tried, being my mom, my sister, our family have tried all the boundaries, everything with him, and he's just made his choice. He divorced my mom 5 years ago after 45 years of marriage. Anytime I try and put up boundaries, he'll go from one extreme to the next, to where he'll just go away and we won't even hear from him for 6 months, or it'll be constant calls, like literally 5 or 6 in a row. I work in healthcare and I'll be in surgery, and it's gotten to the point where I'm like, listen, I'm going to have to block you here. And we've tried everything. And really just don't know what to do at this point or how to move forward. When he split up with my mother, he moved back to his hometown, and I've even been hearing from mutual friends down there that he's down there trashing my whole family, my mom, my sister, everyone behind the back, playing the whole victim card. He's the victim of this grand conspiracy. And
your parents are 5 years divorced. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah. So
what is the question? It sounds like he's difficult and not being nice.
Yeah. That's a very good way of putting it.
Isn't that just so insightful on my part to be able to give that just succinct diagnosis? There, if we weren't on the air, there are probably other words that you would describe him with. So, what? Tell me your question. You said you've done everything. Well, so what's your question?
Well, my question is that I love my father, my dad, very much, but I do not like him. I do not like the person he is, the way he treats me, the way he treats my mother and my sister and my nieces. He is continually trying to reinsert himself in, like, I'll put up the boundaries. If you choose to act like this, then we're not going to talk. We're not going to communicate. We're not going to see each other. And then it's just constant harassment to myself and to everyone else.
When you say you put up the boundary, are you specific about behavior, or are you using descriptive words like, don't be mean and don't be, are you saying specific behaviors that are measurable?
It's very detailed. I will sit down with him, and go over specific situations and how that made me feel and how I would like to be treated moving forward. And
so what is I get it. What is the question?
I don't know. I am to the point where he has caused so much pain to me personally in my life, not to mention my sisters and my mother's, that I can't deal with this person. Like I told my sister the other day that I've never had anyone in my life treat me as bad as my dad does. And
so what is the question?
Do I maintain contact with him? Do I reach out to him on Father's Day and Christmas? Do I, he's not, I'm sorry.
you can you could a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
You love him, right? You don't like his behavior. He's not giving you anything to like. I mean, don't feel bad about not liking that. He's not giving you
Mm-hmm.
anything to like. Love is something that we choose to do regardless. Like Jesus said, love your enemies, right? Well, they're not really giving us
Right.
anything to like. So I totally get that. And I'm glad that you can actually say that, because then you're not walking
Mm-hmm.
around with all this conflict inside. You can be
Right.
free to choose the kind of people that you like and you want to be around. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what I would focus on three things. I think you can, for sure, whatever you want to do that's nice to him, you can do. Send him a card on Father's Day. Reach out to him, say, "Hey, just wanted to wish you a happy Father's Day," or was thinking about you. Here's a I'm trying to think of something back there in Chicago that I know. I don't know enough restaurants back there, but here here's a gift card to go to wherever you would go. Right? I mean, there's nothing that's going to keep you from showering him with love. That's issue number
Mm-hmm.
one. Issue number two is you can do everything you want and should to keep abuse from getting over the transom into your boat.
Mm-hmm.
So you can divide those. You can say,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm going to love you." If you start yelling at me, I'm going to hang up. This is the yelling I talked about. Bye, and I'm going to block you. So don't even try. Bye. Click.
Mm-hmm.
So think
Yeah,
of think
I've
of the
done that.
limits this way. Think of the limits this way. You're going to limit. You're not putting boundaries on him. That's not what we do. We put boundaries on ourselves. What
Right.
you're going to do is you're going to limit your exposure to certain behaviors, and you're still free to do that. And then the third thing that I would say, and you've probably done this, but I would always leave it open, is, Dad, we've had trouble resolving this with the two of us. Anytime you would like to sit down with a good counselor with the two of us, see if we can get to a better place, I'd be open to that. So I would love him.
Right.
I would set limits on not letting him abuse me, and I would always leave an open door to work this out. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've tried all three, in relation to the
Well, stop,
counselor.
stop, 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 stop. Those aren't something you try. See, nothing that I said in there can fail if we understand that I'm the only one I can control.
Right.
That's not something you try, that's something you do. And you've done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying I
Yeah,
tried
I
that
have.
and it didn't dot 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 get him to, whoops, I lost my earpiece.
What's that?
It didn't make a difference in how there's you can't control that.
Right.
Follow me?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that it's an ongoing process. I mean, I've tried the situation where, we sat down and talked about a counselor, and he said, I'm going to do it. And then 3 months later, he said, well, I went and saw somebody 2 times and they said there's nothing wrong with me. And, the
Okay,
times where I have reached out.
I know, Chris, I'm going to say it again. What you're coming back with are things about his responses that he's not responding to what you're doing, right?
Right.
And that's what you've got to surrender. That doesn't keep you
How do you
from
mean?
doing, well, there's nothing you can do about it. But
Right.
it's still kind of getting to you that I'd like, I want him to respond, right? And of course we want him to respond. I'm just trying to help you
Mm-hmm.
realize you can only control what you can control. You can love him and give him gifts and shower him with affection and, you know, give him a cold drink of water, as the Bible said when somebody's being mean to us. We can take the high road, and we're taking the high road. They can't get to us, right? Because we're not wanting anything from them.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, we can also stop them from hurting us by not exposing ourselves.
Right.
you said you're in surgery. What do? You wear a mask, you wear gloves, all those things. You don't, you know, you don't get exposed to a lot of the stuff that can hurt you, right? And then thirdly, you can
Mhm.
invite him to join you in the process. And if he doesn't, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And if you'll get in that
Now,
mindset, then I think it'll help. Okay.
yeah, no, I really appreciate that. It's been an exhausting process, and just as a Christian man, I always want to try to
Yeah.
honor my father as much as I can.
All
It's
three of
very
those things
challenging.
are, it is very challenging, and I applaud you for it. What I'm trying to relieve you of is I'm trying to get you,
Mm.
you're a Christian. I'm trying to get you to uh, realize that God has the same problem that you do.
That's a good point.
Okay. What does he do?
Yeah.
What does he do? He continues to love.
What,
He says,
yeah.
look, I, if you want to do that behavior, you can do it if you want to do all that. But you're not gonna ultimately bring all that evil to my house, right?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
thirdly, he keeps inviting. But a lot of people don't respond. So
Right.
it always helps me when I think, gosh, I want this person to get with the program and change, and I'm doing everything I can do. And they just won't come to the light. That will always be true. Now, what will happen is sometimes the less we stay engaged in this tug of war and let go of them and surrender and just keep doing those three things, and they're not getting the gratification of upsetting you and this war and back and forth, and you really let go, sometimes that leaves
Mhm.
them so alone in their consequences that they wake up, and then they come around. So, but we'll see. But
So
God bless you for
if I
everything
give
that. Go ahead.
if I give him if I set up the boundary with myself that, if you continue to treat me this way, I am going to block your calls from coming in for a continued basis. That's not a vindictive thing to do. That's not an unchristian thing to do.
No, there's not. Vindictive is when we do something to someone. You're
Hmm.
not doing anything to anyone. You're just, you know, somebody shooting bullets in your door. All you're doing is closing the door.
Right.
It's like Proverbs says that if somebody, it calls it a simple person, of somebody's not getting the wake up call, they they see danger and they don't hide themselves. They just continue to walk
Hmm.
right into it. And so it's not
Hmm.
vindictive at all to have those kinds of limits. And anyway, God bless you for trying. All you can do is continue to love somebody and, say, you know what? I forgive you for what you just did, but I can forgive you, but I can't trust you until I hear you say you're sorry and that you want to change and we can see something new. Okay. Thank you for your call. Appreciate you listening, and I appreciate anybody. I was reading in Proverbs this morning about there are some people, and you know what, we see this in the therapeutic community all the time, all the time. There are some people. It says that all they want all they want to do is blame their parents and never look at their own behavior, and they stay stuck. So many times people go into therapy, and absolutely, do I believe in working through family of origin issues? Absolutely. Being healed from family of origins that have hurt you? Absolutely. Having sometimes very clear boundaries with destructive families of origin? Absolutely. We just talked about that. Having to overcome a lot of stuff and naming that, and absolutely. I don't think you should be in denial of any of that. But what some people want to do is, and I'm not speaking of Chris here because he's really working on himself and his own behavior and this and the other. But what some people do is they stay in this bitter place where they never look on at their own growth and what they can do to make their lives better, and just continue to blame. And that's a very powerless position, because you can never change people that don't want to change. And what's already happened has already happened. I remember one of the most powerful statements I ever read was it was it was out of a transcript of a therapy transcript in one of the books I read when I was in training. I think it was in one of Irvin Yalom's books. But in the transcript, the psychiatrist said something like this to his patient. He said, "Okay, if I understand you correctly, here's what you're telling me. You're not gonna be you're not gonna be happy until your mother treats you differently when you were 5 years old." Now think about that statement. You're stuck, right? Until we can surrender somebody, let go the past, and I'm not talking about denying it and not getting healed from it. I'm talking about grieving it, forgiving it, letting it go, and then getting what you need, getting those needs met from people who can actually meet those needs. And moving on, there's an old Spanish proverb says the best revenge is to have a good life. Well, taking the high road of being healthy and then always inviting somebody to come join you. But don't stay stuck waiting, because staying stuck waiting for somebody to change who's not interested in changing, you're going to be on that bus stop for a long time waiting for that bus. A lot of lives going by when we do that. 844-940-2774 is our number, 844-940-2774. And this is the Dr. Cloud Show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us, becoming part of this community. Leave your comments, share the program with your friends so we can continue to build an audience and we can stay on. And also go check out boundaries.me, boundaries.me. I was thinking the issues that we've had on the calls today, we've had, anxiety issues, we've had relationship stuff with families of origin, kind of overcoming the effects of that. Boundaries.me is a place where you can go. Just go to that website and become a subscriber. I have over 60 different courses on there on how to deal specifically with all these kinds of situations. And one of the reasons I keep pushing this and so excited about it is the community that's being built. And there's groups on there where people, join specific groups with each other and start to support each other online and do a lot of good things. So boundaries.me is the place to find that. Okay, so we are going to go back to the phones all the way over to Northern Virginia. That's up there on the other side of the country. I'm on the West Coast, and Mary is going to let us know what's going on in her life. Hey, Mary, how are you?
Hey, good, Dr. Cloud. It's so great to talk to you. I really admire you, and I've followed you for many, many years in your Boundaries books, and so I appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Yes, my situation is sort of some of the things you've told the other callers I can apply to my situation. But I have a very strong group of friends. We went to college together. We're in our early 50s. And I lead Bible studies. I've, very close group of friends. I had a very good friend in my Bible study for years. Her husband and I went out a couple of times, very close friends at school. Nothing serious. No,
okay, so
nothing.
You said you had someone in your Bible study that you dated her husband?
Yeah.
Had.
Not
currently.
Found out about it. No one mentioned it. It's not a big deal. You know how at school people go out. He had also gone out with a couple other friends in the friend group, and we're all Christians. We've stayed in touch over the years, which is awesome. Well,
one of my best friends, the way I met my wife was he came to a party of mine and she was his date. We're great friends.
See, that's how it should be. We actually realized, hey, this isn't going to be a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. We're good friends. And so that was it. Then 25 years later, she at my birthday party, actually, dinner, point blank asked me, "Did you ever go out with my husband?" And I hesitated because she's I knew she would have issues. And
why didn't she know? Why didn't she know before then? How long had y'all been friends?
We never told. 20 years. We never even mentioned it because it wasn't.
Did you know? But you knew this for 20 years, right?
Yes, I did.
But
I
you were
did not
afraid.
feel it was my place to tell her. So I never did, and he never did.
I mean, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I'm just more curious. Was it because you were afraid? Unconsciously, you kind of sensed that she's not going to like this.
Yes. She has insecurities, just different things with her family of origin and different things. And, it wasn't anything. If we were boyfriend and girlfriend or there had been something more serious, I think I would have. But it just wasn't. Well, she found out. Well, not
let me get a real picture of this. How long did you go out with him for, and was it exclusive?
It was not exclusive. We were not boyfriend and girlfriend. It was a summer between school. You sometimes hanging around in the town that you're in. That's what we did. We were the only people around. Hey, let's go to the movies. Okay, a couple times. That's about it. I mean, probably
you just went to the movies a couple
dinners.
Times during college and a few dinners?
Movies, dinners, that's it. Yeah, nothing
That's
else.
it? Was he a good kisser?
No one would consider us boyfriend. I'm not going to. That was about the extent of what happened. A little bit of kissing. That's it.
I had to ask.
That's
okay.
it.
So what's the question?
Neither of us were in relationships. So the question is more with the extended friends. I've tried with this friend. I've reached out. I've done everything I can do spiritually, biblically, in every which way.
I mean, why did you even have to reach out? Did she drop out when she found out about this?
Well, yes. She will not speak to me since, and said she cannot be friends with someone who went out with her husband. So that's fine. It's very sad and it's tragic. But my question is about our extended friend group.
Yeah.
This has been going on for 2 years. So the extended friend group is sort of in the middle, but they do not stand up to this. If there's dinners or golf outings or events, everyone's invited but us. We're intentionally uninvited. And so the thing that has caused problems, I have issues with my close friends who go to these things. So I guess my question is, do I have the right with these friends to say, you need to stand up to this? This is basically bullying. If it was me.
Well, it depends on who's doing the inviting. Now, are you?
Well, they are the original couple.
Oh, the original couple.
Yep.
Okay, so it's
they
not
invite
like
everyone.
It's not like your friends. Not like your friends are having parties and things that you're not invited to because of her. They're not shunning you. They're just going to her parties.
No, that also occurs. If there's, we're in our early 50s, so if there's graduation or kid birthday parties, or our children or young adults now, they have different events. If I'm invited, she will not. She tells the friends, if I'm invited, she will not come.
And then do your friends?
It's extended.
But hold on. But then do your friends go ahead and invite you?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so you do not get excluded.
When it's their stuff.
That's what I'm asking. Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because that is a key point. If your friends were excluding you, right, because she doesn't like it, then I would cry foul on that. Okay. But if you're saying she's having a party and she doesn't want you there and your friends go to her party anyway, that's fine.
Correct.
What you don't ever want, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to do.
Okay.
You don't want to get in these, if you're for her, then you're against me. No. Somebody's got an issue with somebody. Let that be their own issue. You treat your friends and be the best friend to them that you can be, and you invite them to your stuff and you go to their stuff. And if she doesn't invite you, of course your friends can go. I wouldn't ask them to. I mean, that's no, you don't want to be in that kind of like, if she's got the cooties and if you don't, if you play with her, I'm not playing with you. Those kind of games. That's just lame. Don't do that.
Okay. Well, that answers my question. Because I'm like, if you're my true friend, you will stand up to this and not participate in XYZ. It's just, it's unfortunate that it's trickled down into so many relationships, unfortunately,
It's
for
crazy.
nothing.
If what you've
It's
told
crazy.
me is all it
It's
is,
100% the truth. Yeah.
I mean that adults are
And
asking to pick sides on something that's what 30 years old now. That
oh yeah.
if I'm hearing this like it is, then I would.
No, you are.
What do your friends say? What do your friends say? Do they say, well, yeah, this is kind of weird?
No, they
they say
do.
that?
They say it's crazy. It's weird. We feel bad for her. We, but it's just such a large friend group, and
Yeah.
they will have.
Well, I do
know,
I do feel bad to her, but bad for her, and I would hope. And this may be something you might have even tried this. You might say, we were friends. I always liked you, liked being around you, and this and the other. I would still like to be your friend, but if you don't want to be my friend, that's okay. But I feel bad for you that something that literally is nothing is still having this kind of power over you. And so
yeah.
I just want to reiterate again, we didn't even have any interest in each other back then, much less now.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Right.
so I wish the best for you. And I'm sorry this has hurt you. And God bless you. I hope we can be friends again. Then let it go.
Yeah.
Thank you for your call. I am
well, you know what? Thank you for your answer, because I know that's what I've got to do. Yeah.
Don't go lose friends over making them choose. I mean, some people like people that we don't
I
like.
Want to. My human self wants to be like, don't go to that party because I'm not invited and my husband's not invited, and it's crazy. And I just feel like it's a stand-up justice thing, and that's not it, is what you're saying. So.
Well, there's two things. If you would say to them, and you don't have to prove your friendship to me by doing this and this, the other, but if y'all ever just said to her, I'm talking to your other friends now, if y'all ever just said to her that, this really isn't, why does it have to be this way? Why does this have to be so divisive? This doesn't seem good to us. We like Mary. She's our friend.
Yeah.
You can make that request, but I wouldn't do the whole divisive thing. Okay. Mary, thank you for your call.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. Oh goodness. It's interesting in how hard sometimes it is just to let things go. That, and whenever, and I'd leave you with this, and we're about out of time here. I wish we had time for another call. You know what? I'm going to try to get to Jenny real quick. Jenny's been holding, and if we can get Jenny on the air and I can get Jenny to ask her question very quickly, we can do this. But I wanted to say one more thing, and that is, when we are holding on to something that literally has no danger for us, then one of the good things to always ask yourself is, why does this bother me so much when it has no actual danger? That means it is symbolic of something that probably did have danger at one point. In other words, I don't know this woman. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking theoretically. Sometimes you see situations like this. What she's saying is that she has a problem with triangles. Okay. That if her husband or whoever she's attached to, if there's another woman in the picture somewhere, that is threatening. Well, why? what in your history taught you that a presence of another person makes you subject to losing love from somebody? That would be a good question to ask. Okay, Jenny, how are you?
Hi. I'm struggling a little bit, but this has been the best show, listening to it the whole hour. I mean, it's been really good.
Oh, well,
Right day
I'm
for
glad
me
it's
to
been
call
helpful.
in.
What did you say?
Yeah.
You're doing something a little bit?
No, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm struggling a
Oh,
lot
struggling.
right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm sorry.
So,
Tell me how I
yeah,
can
it's
help
just
you.
been a hard couple years here. We have a big family, a lot of kids. Some are graduated now, but I still have several kids at home. So, part of me would say I would stay. Now, here's where I wanted to really try to hone this in, because I know you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah,
But
we've got about a minute, so got about a minute.
Okay, years, a couple years ago, my eyes were opened up to how codependent I was, and I've walked out of that box, and I'm not walking back in that box.
Good
But
for
my
you.
husband hasn't fared too well with that, and I've heard you once say, before they understand that they need help for their issues, because he's been diagnosed from all his childhood traumas with complex PTSD, borderline, whatever, before they realize that they have the issues there to work on, it's abuse. And that's definitely what it has been. And after that, you can long suffer, you can be patient and walk
Wait a
beside
minute.
that and
Say
start
that
getting
again.
help.
Before they realize they have issues, it's abuse. What does that mean?
Right. What I mean, I've heard you say this before, maybe you can clarify, but like prior to, when you're talking about sticking it out with someone and being patient through the marriage, through the in sickness and in health, prior
Yeah.
to them realizing that they need to get help, whether it's an addiction or like with this, a border, mood disorders or all the depression, all these things, prior to them knowing that they are part of the problem and needing the help. Because I was codependent. I was just trying to fix everything and keep everything clear, and nobody has to hurt or feel. I was trying to do everything and keep it together. Prior to that is abuse. When you realize that, and then they seek to get the help, whether you're separated physically or not during that time, that's when God calls us to be patient, long-suffering, and help them know that, like, you're working with them, you're staying with them. But after the 3 years, we've had 3 civil separations. There's been inpatient treatment and things that he has started to move forward, but then he keeps going backwards.
And I'm sorry, I've got to
Yeah.
push you to a question.
That's
I'm
okay.
really sorry, but we're up against the clock.
Yep. So when is the point that you say
Okay.
enough is enough?
Now
and you file
I
some kind of legal separation.
Yeah, now I understand. I think what you said about what I referred to. I think what's happened is two concepts have gotten merged here. Abuse is abuse is abuse. I mean, if somebody's abusing somebody, that is abuse, right? What I was probably referring to, I'd have to hear the context. What I was probably referring to is the concept of long suffering. And what I have said before, and I do believe, a lot of times people will think that they've suffered at the hands of a conflict with somebody for so long. The Bible says to be long suffering, and so we're to be long suffering and put up with this, however long. And what I was saying in that context, I'm sure, because this is what I believe, is that that's not the Bible's concept of long suffering. That's just being in a context where we're being hurt, and it's not the kind of patient long suffering yet, because you're just being hurt. Something's got to be done about that. So then you get boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not when the other person
definitely.
recognizes. It's not when the other person recognizes it and gets help. It's when you recognize it and say, I'm not going to allow the abuse anymore. Then from that point on, we're not being abused anymore because we have boundaries. You might have done a separation, like you've said, or whatever. But now the long suffering is about going through the process while they're figuring out their side of it. That's what the long suffering is.
Right.
It's not when they recognize it. A lot of times, long suffering is waiting on somebody to recognize Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. I just am at the point of needing to file something legally for my sake and my kids' sake, but it's hard because we have this long life together, you know?
Well, it's absolutely hard. Are you getting some help with that? And when you say file something legally for your sake and your kids' sake, are you meaning like, financial separation, or what do you mean
Yeah,
for your sake?
like legal separation so that financially and kids, because I can't control, what he does when he's with them, and he's fine when he's with them and if I'm not around. But when I'm there, it's constant raging at me and blaming me for everything
Okay,
and
but
gaslighting, all that.
but you're not talking about to protect the kids. He's not abusing the kids.
Protect them emotionally. It's emotional and verbal. It's not physical.
Okay, I get
But
it. Okay, so
I feel like that's sometimes worse because
well,
you don't see the scars.
well, absolutely. Here's what I would suggest. Do you have a counselor?
Yeah, I do.
Are you?
Weekly.
Are
Yeah.
okay. So in terms of your question, I'm sorry, we've got to, wish you had more time, but I'm going to leave you
Yeah,
with
no.
a few things to think about. This concept of long suffering is one that long suffering is a giving process to somebody else, that we are doing everything possible to get them to wake up, and get better. And we're helping and this and the other. Now, that starts really when we're not being abused anymore and we put limits on that, because up until then, I mean, a victim can't be being patient, right? You're being hurt. So that's when you have boundaries, and sometimes boundaries include separations. If somebody's truly, truly being hurtful, and there's, all sorts of other limits we set in the context of that, then sometimes the separation can be very, very helpful, but the separation's got to have requirements. So I'm going to separate and I will get back together if A, B, and C and D are followed, and you get help and coming in the process, etc. So I would go talk to your counselor and I get some really good help in this. And here's how I would think about it: that you always want to structure a separation in the service of trying to bring the other party to a place where they will do what they need to do to make this work. See, a separation has power. A separation is like a timeout for somebody that's not not saying they want to be helpful, and the separation can be used in the service of actually getting somebody to have a wake up call. So, wish we had a lot more time on that. That was a very, very important question. One of the places I know in boundaries.me, we've got a lot of stuff on this kind of process and how to set the limits and when to have hope and when to not have hope. So go to boundaries.me, and I think you'll be able to find a lot of stuff in this whole arena on that. A book that might be helpful to you along these lines is I wrote a book called Necessary Endings. And how do we know, like, when to keep long suffering and when to pull the plug? Very, very, very difficult question. When do you have hope and when do you not have hope? When's somebody giving us objective reasons that right now there's no hope? I need to have some limits and boundaries and consequences. Very, very hard questions. But the hard questions are one of the things we do here. And I want to thank you for joining me first of all, to the callers, thank you for sharing your lives with us. And when you do that, everybody else learns, because I mean, everything we talked about today, somebody's experiencing somewhere. So thank you, callers. And also thank you for the community that comes alongside the callers on Facebook and other places and begins to talk about this stuff and begins to share and what goes on. And so thank you for that. I'm going to ask you my favor again. Share the program with your friends. Share the link. If you heard something today that applies to somebody, send it to them, because if we build an audience, we're going to stay, because I like talking to you. But if nobody ever comes, then I'm here all by myself. So that's it. Also, one more time, go to boundaries.me. You'll find a lot of good stuff there. You guys rock. Glad I got tongue out with you, and I will see you tomorrow. I need to find out here. I usually say at the end of the program kind of what time the show is tomorrow. Normally we're at this time, But sometimes we have to change it, and tomorrow is apparently not one of the days we're changing it. So we will be here at 1 p.m. Pacific time, but the show can be listened to around the clock. So just tune in and whenever you want, unless you want to call, be there in that hour. Okay. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow.